module, we're going to be learning about the endocrine system, the nervous system, hormones, receptors, and the hypothalamus and pituitary gland and their roles. How can the body parts communicate with each other to detect and counteract changes from the normal? So by pathways in two interacting body systems. The endocrine system, which is the hormonal system. Now the endocrine system is made up of glands that secrete chemical hormones into blood and target tissues. In this picture here, it shows just a few of the glands that secrete these hormones. It says the pituitary gland, which is in the brain, the thyroid gland, which is in the throat, adrenal gland, which is on top of your kidneys, and pancreas, and the ovary, and testicles. So all of these secrete hormones. Endocrine glands make hormones. These are chemicals that travel in the blood to cause an effect in other parts of the body to maintain a balance. The other system is the nervous system, which is made up of the central nervous system, which is CNS, or control center, the brain and spinal cord. So the central nervous system is literally the spinal cord and the brain, and it's the nervous system running all the way down the center of your body. Then there's the peripheral nervous system, or I write that as PNS, with branching nerves, neurons, covering the entire body. So all of the nerves branching out from the center is your peripheral nervous system. What are receptors? Now, our body knows how to respond to each environment due to receptors in our body. Receptors are cells, and they tend to be sensory cells that are on our skin and within our body to be able to detect change and send the message by our nerves to the brain. Types of receptors. Now, this here is actually within your body. It actually shows from one nerve to the other nerve chemical signals that is being sent. And it's funny how the nerves are not actually physically connected. They're only slightly apart from each other. And when they send a signal, they send out these chemical signals that run to the next nerve. And it happens so fast. When you touch something really hot, you'll notice that within a split second, you'll be pulling away from that item, whatever is really hot. So this process happens really quickly. There are different receptors within our body and on the surface of our skin. Receptors depend on the body senses. So there's sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. Types of receptors for each of the senses. Our eyes have photoreceptors, and they're light sensitive. Photo meaning light. So it tends to be whatever it is, it's the name before the word. So receptor, photo meaning light, light receptor, okay? Ears is mechanoreceptors, and it detects vibrations and sound. It's not actually sound in the environment. Sound actually comes from vibrations, and these vibrations actually are waves that move through the air, and we detect them as vibrations in our ears, but it's actually our brain that detects this and turns the message into sound. Tongue, chemoreceptors, so they detect chemicals. Our tongue is very similar to our nose. It smells. We've got chemoreceptors that detect chemicals. 90% of our taste actually comes from our nose. So you'll notice that when we're sick with the cold or the flu and our nose is really stuffy, when we have a beautiful rich pasta sauce, for example, we can't taste the full potential of that food. Sometimes you'll find that you cannot taste at all when your nose is really, really blocked up. Skin, another one that's mechanoreceptors that are sensitive to touch and pressure, but there's multiple receptors in the skin due to external stimuli. So there's for temperature, we've got thermoreceptors, thermostat, okay, so thermoreceptors, and for pain, there are nociceptors. So here's three that are just in the skin. Most internal vital organs are protected by a fluid and ultimately by our skin. The skin is the largest organ in your body, and it covers your whole body for a reason, and it is to protect our other organs. Without the skin, our vital organs would be exposed to many harsh environments which they wouldn't be able to cope. Our senses work together to maintain a stable internal environment despite the external conditions. It is to protect our body's vital organs and activities by keeping a constant internal environment. the nervous system's role in homeostasis. Here we have a nerve, and you can see here that there's a little light coming out. So the nerves have a change in a rate of impulses, and these impulses are actually electrical impulses within our body, and they're according to the temperature of the body. They communicate with the part of the brain called the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus can control what message it sends through these nerves. So what is the hypothalamus? The hypothalamus is the control center of homeostasis and is linked to the endocrine system by the pituitary gland. So the hypothalamus is here and the pituitary gland is right underneath it. They're right next to each other. The pituitary gland releases hormones when signaled by the hypothalamus. Hormones in plants. Plants and other organisms without nervous systems, so they don't have the nerves running through their body, they secrete hormones to make changes based on their external environment. So they actually rely on their hormones and they don't have that nervous system to maybe contract or come away from the sun because it's too hot, for example. So plants will respond to changes in temperature, sunlight, water and nutrients available in the environment. And these are much slower than a nervous system response because they actually move from cell to cell. So as it says, the hormone is moved from cell to cell along the plant until it reaches the target area. However, animals use their blood as a transport of hormones, and therefore an animal's hormonal response is much faster. Our target tissue might be, for example, in the leg, if we're experiencing pain in our feet if we step on something that's sharp, but it goes from our brain to our feet really fast. The same with hormones. Hormones might have a different target area. For example, in the kidneys, we might have a different water level in our blood, and it needs to go from our brain and send a hormone response to the pituitary gland, which is released, and it's released in the blood and it travels through our body. So the blood actually makes hormones traveling through really fast. It's much faster response than plants or animals without that nervous system. So hormones in humans. Above, so we've got 3 salivary glands in this picture here. Hormones are released in glands in the body in response to the activity of tissues and organs. Some hormones are released into target area by ducts. So for example, includes salivary glands, milk glands, and digestive glands. In our salivary glands, for example, it releases the saliva, which is in the saliva there's an enzyme, amylase, and this enzyme actually breaks down carbohydrates, complex carbs, into the simple ones. So you're looking at it starting to break down, and the breakdown actually does keep our body back to normal because we need to digest these foods to make sure that we're getting those sugars. And getting the sugars means that our body can actually keep working efficiently. So each system in our body, we secrete different things, different hormones to actually bring the body back to normal. Hormones in humans. So some hormones are released directly into the blood to be transported to target cells. There are around 50 different types of hormones in the human body. Some glands and hormones are mentioned below. Here we've got the pituitary gland, and it makes hormones that stimulate the adrenal and thyroid glands, ovaries and testes. It also makes anti-diuretic hormone, prolactin, growth hormone and oxytocin. The thyroid gland makes thyroxine. The parathyroid gland makes parathyroid hormone, which helps the control of calcium levels. Anti-diuretic hormone. So this hormone regulates water concentration. There's prolactin, and that hormone controls milk production and secretion. We've got the growth hormone, and we know that that stimulates growth and cell reproduction. And thyroxine controls the regulation of the body's metabolic functions. You might hear of some people that have an underactive thyroid and an overactive thyroid. The people with underactive thyroid tend to find it hard to lose weight, and they tend to put on weight easier. And that's because their body's metabolic functions aren't working as efficiently. Then you see people with an overactive thyroid. If they have an overactive thyroid, a typical side effect of this is actually losing lots of weight. So if someone with an overactive thyroid might be able to eat lots of things, and their metabolic processes are going out of control. Now, another one that isn't mentioned here is oxytocin. Oxytocin is a hormone that is released in your body and it actually makes you feel good or love. So say, for example, you have a partner and that partner touches you, you're, especially more so in females, we release an oxytocin hormone, and males do too, but when we release the oxytocin, it actually tells our brain this is our partner and we feel that love for someone. So oxytocin is the feel-good hormone. The role of hormones is the control of the internal environment to maintain homeostasis by regulating the amount and types of body chemicals. Hormones are chemical messengers which are secreted by glands in order to bring about relatively gradual changes in the body. For example, insulin. Okay, so when we eat food, we actually ingest different types of products in that food. One of them is sugar. When we have excess sugar in our body, insulin is released, and its aim is to encourage the liver to absorb glucose from the blood and then convert it to glycogen. Hormones allow the body to cope with stress, physical and emotional. So we're going back to insulin here, looking at this graph here. If we do eat, we've got glucose in our body, and glucose is just a reference food, so it's a type of sugar. So we've got blood sugar levels increase when we eat, and it might increase to a maximum. And as our body processes this, we might release this hormone of insulin. After time, so insulin is released in the blood, the sugar is then absorbed into the liver, and sugar levels decrease in the blood. So as sugar level decreases, this is what your body should look like when you've eaten food. It should increase in glucose, but within 2 hours, it should actually bring it back to normal. And that's why if you're going to get a test for diabetes, they'll actually say you need to fast for at least 2 hours to make sure that your blood levels are back to normal. Blood sugar, water, and waste levels are other internal stimuli. Blood glucose levels are maintained by the hormone of insulin released by the pancreas. When there is insufficient insulin, blood sugar levels remain high, and this results in diabetes. So if you did have diabetes, this graph would actually come up here and plateau, and it would take a long time for that blood sugar to get back down. Glands and hormones. So the anti-diuretic hormone released from the pituitary gland controls water reabsorption in the nephron. The nephron is a section in the kidney. When levels of fluid in the blood drop, the hypothalamus causes the pituitary to release this anti-diuretic hormone. As a result of that, it actually increases the water levels, and your kidney starts to grab the water levels back from your kidney. When you get the water levels back in, it actually makes your blood go from thick to becoming more thin, and your body actually works better with a good consistency of blood. Aldosterone is another one. It's a salt regulation. It's a steroid hormone secreted by the adrenal gland, and the adrenal gland sits right on top of your kidney. Its function is to regulate the transfer of sodium and potassium ions in the kidney. So if more is released, it means that more salt will actually be absorbed from the kidney. When salt is absorbed, water actually follows. Aldosterone, salt regulation, and the anti-diuretic hormone, which is water reabsorption regulation, are two hormones that are vital to the body, and you should know these for your course. Please see the video, The Role of Hormones in Regulating Salt and Water Concentrations in Blood, for more information about this. Test yourself. So here's some questions. Think about the answers. You can write these down, write your answers down. The first question is, what is the role of hormones? The second question, what, in general, do the antidiuretic hormone and aldosterone do? Number 3, what is the receptor that detects a change in temperature? Number 4, what is the hypothalamus and what does it do? Number 5, what is the pituitary gland? Press pause to write down your answers now. Okay, let's look at the answers. What is the role of hormones? The role of hormones is the control of the internal environment to maintain homeostasis by regulating the amounts and types of body chemicals. Number 2, what in general do the antidiuretic hormone and aldosterone do? The anti-diuretic hormone and aldosterone controls and regulates the reabsorption of water, blood pressure, and volume. Aldosterone regulates the salt concentrations of the body. Both of these work together because when your water levels are low, you might actually take in more salt, and that aim is to bring in more water from your urine. So the uptake of salt helps bring more water back in from your urine, makes your urine more concentrated. People actually think that too much salt is bad for you. Yes, too much is, but you do need some salt in your body to be able to regulate water efficiently. Number 3, what is the receptor that detects a change in temperature? It's the thermoreceptors, detect a change in temperature, and they're in your skin. What is the hypothalamus, and what does it do? The hypothalamus is the control center for homeostasis. It's in the brain. What is the pituitary gland? And they work together. So the pituitary gland releases hormones when signaled by the hypothalamus. The pituitary gland also does store some hormones as well. The summary of the endocrine and nervous system. The endocrine system is the hormone regulation of your body. The nervous system are nerves to transmit signals to the hypothalamus. The endocrine system and nervous system work together to control the growth, maturation, and internal balance of mammals. This concludes looking at the endocrine system and the nervous system.